Firstly, thank you. Thanks to Max for inviting us along. Max and I met probably 3 years ago, year on, and we were talking about.
Keep talking.
Vanadium batteries at the time, and I said, look, got some exciting stuff coming up. And I said, look, when it gets to the point where it's ready to talk about, I'll let you know, because I'd obviously been to these meetings before and wanted to see if we had an opportunity to present. So that's it's worked out well, and we're here. My name's Michael Wake. This is Mark Reynolds. Mark's the chairman of the AFB, which is Australian Flow Batteries. And today we're going to do a bit of an introduction, a quick one about Mark and I. We don't want to bore you greatly about that part of things. And then we'll talk about what is a vanadium redox flow battery, what the advantages are of the battery, the obvious comparison, and I say that because it should be obvious that it's probably against lithium, applications, availability, and if you don't mind, what we'll do is we'll have questions at the end. I'm more on the sales and marketing side, so please don't expect any technical speak from me. Mark's more technical than I am, so if we have technical questions and we want to get into technical questions, Mark will be able to do that. But today I wanted to really just introduce you to vanadium batteries, or to flow batteries. When I speak to the average person, and you guys aren't the average person because you're in the industry, most people don't know what vanadium is, let alone a vanadium battery. They look at you quite funny, and then they don't even know how to say it or spell it. So that's the boring part about Mark and I. I've been in the energy sector for 45 years. Started when I was 12. Mark's been around a long time as well. Mark's the chairman of Australian Flow Batteries, and he's had a lot to do with them, particularly in the last 20 years. So Mark's got a lot of knowledge in that area. So what is a vanadium redox flow battery? Well, you'll all get a copy of this presentation. You can all have a read and get into all the details, but basically it's a liquid battery full of electrolyte, vanadium dioxide. And basically it's, Mark will be able to explain it in more detail if you want to, but you can have a quick read and see what it's about. But it's a very simple battery. It was designed at the University of New South Wales in 1986. It virtually sat in a corner for probably 30 years. There were some made, including Mark. Mark made one in the late 90s, early 2000s. But there's now probably 400 or 500 of these individual batteries around the world. They're running very successfully. Not a single one is caught on fire. Some are in the Himalayas at minus 30 degrees. Some are where it's 45 and 50 degrees. They still operate very well and have been operating very well. So we're very, we think they've got a great future. Oops, I went the wrong way. Look at that. Look, now I get a bit fancy. So what are the advantages? Look, they've got an estimated lifespan of 20 plus years. We almost don't know because they almost haven't been around long enough for us to know. But the people that do know and the experts suggest that they've got 20,000 plus cycles and 20 years plus for the battery. So that's a good thing. They can operate in temperatures, we say, from -5 to 50 in ambient situations, because we're talking about Australia. But as we said, we're aware of some in Europe that's in colder climates. They're suitable for on-grid and off-grid. That's the beauty of them. They're very flexible. They can go anywhere. They are a large battery. Let's not mix them up with lithium. Lithium, you know, you've got a Tesla Powerwall, it's, you know, this big and that deep, and that's 13.5 kilowatts. And if you want a 20 kilowatt vanadium battery, it's the size of a two-door fridge because it's got 900 litres of electrolyte in it. So they're never going to be small. You're never going to put them in a car. You're never going to put them in your phone. They're a stationary battery. They can be fully discharged without any damage. Again, comparing it to a lithium battery, that's not always the case. The best part, they're non-flammable, non-explosive. As I said, there's never been a single fire associated with these batteries. That's got to be a great thing in any environment, in any situation. We often say you could put it in your bedroom, but the garage or out under the eaves is fine. We can scale them, of course. Size is not an issue. There's one in China that's 400 megawatts, and it's not in a container, it's actually in a building. So all the electrolyte, etc., it's built into a building specifically for the battery. So the building is the battery. So they can go to almost any size. Recycling of lithium batteries is a future problem if it's not a problem already today. You don't recycle a vanadium battery, you repurpose it, because you can take the electrolyte, you can take the vanadium pentoxide, you can take it out of the old battery because the container's probably breaking down, and you just put it into a new container and off you go for another 20 odd years. So no recycling. That's got to be a better thing for the environment. Yes, you've got to dig it out of the ground, and yes, you've got to make it and produce it, etc., but you virtually only have to do it once, and it'll last many, many, many years. Which I just talked about. But they can also, so one of the things about lithium batteries is they talk about a 8 to 10 year life on average for a lithium battery. That's if you cycle it once a day. These you can cycle twice a day, 3 times a day. It won't affect the battery. So it won't reduce the life of the battery. It'll just keep going. And of course they're great for uninterruptible power supplies. So we think that they're a great battery going forward. So the comparison, at the end of the day, lithium batteries are great. I never stand here, I've never talked to anybody and say there's anything wrong with lithium batteries. I mean, they've got certain issues in certain situations, but they're a great battery for phones and cars and laptops, etc. They're fantastic, but they're a mobile battery in my opinion. From our point of view, the vanadium battery is a stationary battery. It's a big, heavy battery, it's full of liquid, it's stationary, it needs to sit somewhere, but when it's there, it'll store the energy for you. You'll put renewable energy in it, and it'll give you renewable energy back whenever you need it. One of the things I got told was quite interesting is if you get a lithium battery and you get a vanadium battery and you fill them up to 100% and you push them into the shed and come back 12 months later, the lithium battery will be drained, the vanadium battery will still be full. So it holds its storage very well. So as I said, I don't necessarily talk badly of lithium batteries, but they do have an 8 to 10 year cycle life. The last 2 years they do tend to get a loss of efficiency, and that's under normal weather circumstances. Murdoch University recently did a study where they found that they had done a project with a 20-year project of putting lithium batteries into a remote community up north. It was a 25-year project, and they put in lithium batteries. This was about 12 months ago, and I said to the guy who was doing the paper, I said, so how many lithium batteries are you going to replace over that time? And he said 5. And I said, so you're expecting a 5-year life? And he goes, in that heat, yes. Heat doesn't affect the vanadium battery. You don't have that issue. So whether it's, as I said, -5 degrees or 45 degrees, you're still going to have the same life out of it. And I think that's important. They're long-lasting, they're scalable, they're non-flammable, they're efficient, and of course sustainable. So when you look at, you just look at the line of efficiency on a vanadium battery versus a lithium battery, you can see the difference. The lithium battery loses efficiency over time, the vanadium battery just keeps on keeping on, which is fantastic. So applications. Look, we believe it crosses all sectors: residential, commercial, industrial, manufacturing, mining, and even the big community batteries, which the government loves paying for at the moment. I would have to say to you, in my opinion, down the track, they'll be vanadium batteries, they won't be lithium batteries. And when these ones they're putting in now are ready to be replaced in 8 and 10 years' time, they'll have to spend some more money, and they'll put these ones in my opinion. So the applications are unlimited. Where you need energy, you can put a vanadium battery. It's as simple as that. We're in discussions with a number of groups, and a lot of them are talking about how up north, for example, there's 4,000 pumping stations, diesel-operated pumping stations to pump water for mines, 4,000 plus. None of them have got lithium batteries and solar because it doesn't stack. but they're now talking about vanadium batteries because they know that they've got the long life. So they've got a good long-term return on investment, or even from an OPEX point of view, it's still a good way to go. But there's no lithium batteries up there because they simply don't last. So if you need 24/7 energy from a solar point of view, and you can obviously do it with wind as well, but if you've got solar, I always divide the day into 3. Daylight, which is 1/3, and nighttime, which is 2/3. That's being a little bit generous, I suppose, but if you put a solar system in 3 times what you need in the daytime, it'll fill the battery for the energy you need at night time. So you can be 24/7 and you can be using renewable energy 24/7 if you want. I have a bit of an issue with EVs. We've got all these EV chargers being put in around the metropolitan area and put everywhere, and we're all connecting up to the grid. Well, the grid's on average 40% renewable, and it's coal, diesel and gas. It's not far behind petrol. So if you're going to put chargers in and you're going to charge an EV car, you should be putting renewable energy into it. So why don't you have a solar system, a battery and a charger, and size it right, and every car you could fill up over 24 hours is going to be filled up with 100% renewables. That's what we should be aiming for, not just whacking chargers onto the network. I don't think that's the best long-term outcome. So availability. There's got to be a little bit of a sales side in this. As they say, pizza's not always free. These batteries are available. So, Amanda and I have been talking for a couple of years, the same as with Max. And I said, look, they're coming. They're coming. Well, they're here. We've already produced our first one. We've got another one landing on the docks in a few weeks' time. So if you want one, we'll make you one. And we'll deliver it and we'll set it up and we'll get it working for you. And the best part is we'll customise it to your site-specific requirements. So it's built for what you need it to be. If you've got demand and the battery can't handle the demand, we have a solution because we can put supercapacitors in there which can take the spike and then go back onto the vanadium battery, and the vanadium battery will charge the supercapacitor. And when it spikes again, you'll have the same thing, the same cycle. The beauty of putting a supercapacitor battery with a vanadium battery is it helps with the demand scenario, but it's basically 2 sisters together. Because, 2 years ago they were talking about putting a lithium battery in with the vanadium battery to handle the spikes because lithium's got a little bit better capacity for demand. And I said, well, that's great, you're putting a non-flammable with a flammable. Not really the outcome we're after. The supercapacitors are like sisters to a vanadium battery. They're non-flammable, 20,000 cycles, great battery, very good to have, great sister to have with this one. And we can build a battery to what you need. In this photo on the bottom right is the supercapacitor battery. 2 36 kilowatt batteries. These ones are 2C, so they're equivalent to a 72 kilowatts, but you can get supercapacitors now up to 10C. So you don't need a huge supercapacitor to give you that spike management. Behind the part at the back is 11,000 litres of electrolyte in a 20-foot container, and then you've got your inverters. And there's a battery management system in there as well. Now, of course, we couldn't go by and say, well, we need some energy. So Mark was very kind to go, well, we're going to design something new. So they designed a thing called a solar wing. Basically, it's a containerised energy generator. And the beauty of it is it folds out. So if there's a cyclone, etc., you simply fold it back in. It takes about 4 hours to set up. You roll it out. It's rated up to 83 kilometres. There's no ground penetration at that level. But if you do have cyclones, then you can go into ground penetration. But without ground penetration, it's easier to get approval. And you can take them anywhere because it's in a 20-foot container. But it's a power generator. You get 100 kilowatts in a 20-foot container, and you get 50 kilowatts in a 10-foot container, and they're plug and play. You don't need an electrician. And they will plug into the vanadium battery that you can put next to it. The other thing is you can manifold them together. So if you needed 500 kilowatts of storage. You can put 5 of these together and you've got 500 kilowatts of storage almost instantly. You just need some flat ground. And brochures are available on request. Please feel free to ask. So look, basically, the solar wing or a fixed array will give you the energy you need to use during the day, or additional energy you will need to store at night time. Obviously, the battery is your main storage of that. The batteries, of course, can be manifolded as well. So, for example, the battery we have been working on is a 180 kilowatt hour battery over 5 hours. So you'll get 36 kilowatts of energy per hour out of that battery for 5 hours. If you need more, we just add another container, and add another container, add another container. So you can get into the megawatts with a container manifolded structure and system. The supercapacitors, as I said, in certain cases where you've got a reasonable flat load and you don't have spikes, you don't need supercapacitors. Quite simple. They're there for a reason. They're there to make the battery more usable in various circumstances. And it was mainly designed, to be honest with you, a lot to do with the mining sector, because the mining sector have that kind of demand. So we've tried to build a battery where we can design the battery to suit what you need for that site. At the end of the day, we try and it's not one fits all, because one won't fit all. All sites will have different requirements. And of course, there's a wonderful battery management system that goes with it. So in simple terms, we can provide you with a full off-grid, on-grid site. Doesn't really matter if there's existing array of solar. We can hook into that. The battery will work with wind. Even a diesel generator can generate into the battery. And if it's on-grid, you can actually fill the battery up on-grid at off-peak rates if you want to. So it's very flexible in what it can do. Now, this is my part. This is one of my favourite parts. We've also designed a residential battery. Now, there's 3.2 million homes at the moment in Australia with solar, and there's 400,000 going up a year. So we've designed a 20 kilowatt. Mark 3 years ago designed a 10 kilowatt. Soon realised that it wasn't enough, particularly with EVs coming onto the market. So it's now 20 kilowatts. It's about the size of a 2-door fridge, and it weighs probably a tonne. Simple terms, because it's got 900 litres of electrolyte in it. And it would fit under the eaves of a house, or it'll sit in the garage. It's okay because it's inert. It's non-flammable. It's fine. But basically, you've got a 6.6 kilowatt standard solar system on board. That'll produce 30 kilowatts of energy per day. The average house in Perth uses 22. So there's room to have a storage capacity if you're a bigger house or you've got a car that you want to fill. And guess what? It's 100% green energy. So it's nice for the environment and the car. So that's kind of like what it looks like. I know that's an old photo, and I know Mark's got a prettier design, but functionally it's a battery that works. It's been tested for the last 2 years and it's working really well. We're hoping to bring it out in the next 6 to 12 months. Time will tell. As I said, and I have my little EV whinge earlier about we need to be filling up EVs with green energy, so I just got in a bit early, that's all. The other thing which is quite interesting, someone told me once that 20% of Western Power's budget is spent on 10 days a year. And you may remember the 42 degrees and 43 degrees days we just had. They're those 10 days a year. So they spend 20% of their budget because they have to bring up old equipment that's diesel or coal or gas that's inefficient. So we've got enough power to generate energy so we can all sit at home and have air conditioning. That's the reason it's used. Funny enough, if you put a couple of thousand of these on a couple of thousand homes, the more you put on, the less demand it's going to put onto the grid. They don't have to turn on the old stuff, and it's going to be better for us environmentally as well as economically. So there's another reason for put more of these batteries into our system and into our grid. After all, we do have the largest grid in the world. We also have the largest urban sprawl in the world. Used to be Melbourne, but we beat them now because we kept on going north. So, look, you combine solar and wind and this battery in terms of ESG and reducing the carbon footprint for most businesses. Solar and batteries are one of the very few where you can actually spend money and get a return. They'll pay themselves off, and then you'll end up saving money and being better off for the environment. So it generates an income, and it also reduces your carbon footprint. And on average, in commercial scenarios with solar, we get about a 40% ROI. I don't know in too many businesses where you can get $1 in a commercial business and get 40% back. And that'll increase each year because power's going to go up CPI at a minimum. Thank you for your time and your consideration. This is fancy, look. I spent ages trying to find that.
Well done.
So if you've got any questions, sales and marketing, that's me, and I can answer what I can tell you and what I know. Technical questions, that'll be Mark. So